because I am a hermit and a shut-in, and I deal with internalized homophobia. Yay! But, anyway, but I really am looking forward to this Pride season. A lot of you, if you watched that Storytime video that I did, will know that last year, 2023, was the year that I kind of came into my own in terms of being, like, socially gay. And then also a little bit about, like, how I became sort of very comfortable with going out and being in queer spaces. So, this all being said, I think that it's required, at least, for me to speak about Pride Month. And this isn't because it's like gay homework or something like that, of course. I will have a video this month that goes over the history of Pride and why Pride is very necessary, but today I am going to be talking a little bit about my own coming out story. Now, I know coming out videos are very much like, they're very like 2014. Hi Troy Sivan, hi Connor Franda. Now that I share a platform with all of you, just kidding, you guys. Troy Sivan and Connor Franda have no fucking clue who I am. I wish, well, I mean, I wish they would, but whatever, that's me being selfish. They're also very cute. Anyway, whatever, I didn't say that. So, I thought that to celebrate Pride Month, we do like just one giant check-in as a full video. Now, of course, if you are not comfortable sharing your coming out story, if you are not comfortable speaking about being queer, please do not put yourself in danger. This is not me calling upon you to spill your guts out. I just think that myself putting out my coming out story in a codified video that puts it out there, I think is helpful. I think that coming out videos were very helpful for me. I know it sounds cliched, but I mean, there is a reason why the Troy Sivan coming out video was like my most viewed of that year. I think, was it 2014 or 13? No, I was in grade 10, so it would have been 13. Really? No. 2014. Wait. Oh god. Why can't I even... God, I watched that video, like, the Troy Sivan coming out video, I watched like 200 times. I was obsessed with that video. But anyway, I think that they kind of give queer people a avenue to live that out, and then also to hear from somebody that things do turn out. I mean, that whole It Gets Better movement, we needed that for a reason, and I was lucky that I started coming out to people in a time where that was very much becoming a thing that you could just do and be celebrated for. But there are many places here on planet Earth and in Canada and the United States, places we usually think of as bastions of safety, that it is not safe to come out in. It's not safe to be openly gay or openly queer in very many communities, especially, for me, it takes a 20-minute drive before I might start considering myself a little bit scared. If I was, a visibly queer person, other than my hair, really nothing about me is visible. I benefit from a lot of privilege in terms of, the fact that I am male and that I am, of course, white. I get a lot of passes, and the colored hair is really the only thing that is loud about my identity, but so many people have that these days that it's not necessarily the marker of, hi, I'm gay. But not a lot of people have families or surrounded by people that I have the luxury of being surrounded by, or I have the luxury of, like, the family that I'm a part of. So I think that a coming out video like this is very necessary because it at least shows people that there is goodness out there and there is joy to be had in the queer experience, and there is life that is lived in tandem with being queer, because I think a lot of the time that our queerness is attached to survival, and oftentimes it is. There's the threat of being kicked out, there's the threat of being ostracized, there's the threat of experiencing violence. So I think that having coming out stories out there that are, like, positive are necessary, and mine is not all positive. I don't ever talk about this on this channel, but in order to not divulge too much, I do not speak to one half of my family, and that is primarily because of my identity. It's also because of the actions of the person that used to have ownership of the title of my father. That man no longer gets to be in my life because of the ways that I was treated because of my queerness, and then also just specifically the ways that he decided to treat our family. But I'm not going to dive too much into that. I'm not averse to diving into it. I just don't think that that story has a lot of I like to keep things generally on a positive note, or if they are on a negative note, harmless, and I find that that chapter of my life is very much over, thank goodness, and it is cathartic for me to dive into it, but I've been through a lot of therapy for it. So if we ever want to hear that story, I am perfectly fine with sharing it, but I think in a story that is mostly about the joy that I found in coming out, I don't think that necessarily has much of a place, especially because that side of my family doesn't deserve a place in the story of my joy. So, that being said, like I said, would encourage you to share in the comments a coming out story or a story just relating to this kind of thing, but that is by no means me forcing you. Do not share if it is not safe for you to do so. That is the opposite of what I want. If you are not safe to share, I am fully with you. I fully support you. I love you. You deserve that love. You deserve much more love than you're getting or than you are feeling. And I don't know. There's a place in my heart for you. I truly want to do more to help people out, but currently thinking of a way to do that. I don't know. My uncle is really good about helping with stuff like that. He owns businesses and rents garages and shit, and he just is in a lot of stuff. And every now and again, he and I are like, should we open a shelter or something? Should we open a fundraiser for like trans youth or something like that? Especially because his sons are very much queer as well. It kind of runs in the family. So anyway, that all being said, I am going to get started with my coming out story as we change from just May, which is Asian Heritage Month, so that is a very auspicious occasion, but we change from May to June, which is my month. So yeah, you all have to be nice to me, because it's my Pride Month now. And it's also a lot of people's Pride Months. I'm very protective of Pride. I really like it. I love that I get to celebrate for a month just being myself. It's really cool. Like the fact that my life has just ended up gifting me an entire feel about masculinity, the way that a lot of men feel about femininity. There is something that is very attractive to me about that sort of air of, like, it's hard to really say, like, oh, this is specifically what I find attractive. Like, it's not that I find, like, I don't find a flat chest attractive and buff arms attractive. It's just that there is a general, like, like an energy that I find attractive about people who display, like, masculinity, and generally I think that aligns with, like, male people. Now, my sort of attraction is complicated by the fact that I am asexual. So when I speak about my attraction to people, a lot of, like, I find that sometimes when I introduce myself to people, like if I'm working with coworkers, this happened a lot at Starbucks, and not in that, like, I find a lot of people don't understand asexuality. It's not that I am not a sexual creature, although, interestingly enough, I found that, like, up until very recently, I just had no interest in learning about any of that. I skipped out on sex ed, I skipped out on all that, because I was like, never gonna happen. Like, this was even when I was trying to convince myself that I was straight. I was like, no. I don't need to hear about that. I don't need to figure things out. We're good. That's kind of how I've always felt. And up until very recently, Starbucks people helped me out with this. Starbucks people feature very prominently in my queer journey. They kind of... There was this one guy who worked at the store that I worked at that really helped open my eyes to the fact that I can be asexual and also, like, maybe have desires here and there. Anyway, so that part is very much still in development. We'll just put it at that. But, like, when I was a kid, for example, and this is how I know that, like, being gay was just always kind of the thing, especially when I came out to myself, a lot of things started making sense. I would very much latch on to the other boys in class, and this was very much in a platonic way. Like, when I was in elementary school, I just remember thinking about, like, the girls in class. I was like, I want to be friends with you. And that was the extent of it. The boys in class, I was like, I want to be friends with you. But then there's something extra that I could never put my finger on, because when I was a kid, I never had any concept of what a gay person was. Now, I find it really interesting because looking back, my mom, she would often tell me that there are just sometimes people who have two moms. There are just sometimes people that have two dads. In the same way that there are sometimes people who have one mom, there are some people who have one dad, or there are some people who have multiple parents beyond two because of step-parents, or because they are in a different type of relationship than just a monogamous one. Like, she was always really good about that, but she was also really good about never assigning labels to things. And I really owe her the level of acceptance that I feel for other people. I owe that to her because she made it seem just very, very normal. Like, this is something that just exists. This is something that people are. this is something they should be allowed to be. And that's the long and short of it. There were a couple of kids who had two moms in one of my classes, and I always just thought it came from that. Little did I know it came from the fact that my mom was like a full-on, absolutely wonderful, like, ally back in the 80s. Like, she, in her high school, like, her high school was a Catholic high school that she graduated from, and there was one of the teachers that I think would pick on two of the gay boys who were going to her high school at that time, and she, like, fully staged a walkout until those two teachers were disciplined. I have the best mom ever, literally. And just kidding, I'm sure all of your mothers are wonderful. But, I don't know, I really love mine. I think that's natural. But, anyway, so going back to myself as a kid, there was always just this thing of, well, I think there's something different. And then as I got older and older, like grade 3 and 4 and 5, it just became this thing of the girls in class are pretty, sure, but the boys in class, that's where it's at. I remember when I was a kid, I would always describe, like, men on TV as pretty. I would describe one of my, now looking back, childhood crushes was Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. So, I mean, like, you know, that it's a lot of things were pointing to it. This is the reason why my mom was like, oh yeah, of course, I always knew when I came out. But anyway, so yes, I just always had this feeling of girls are fine. I love them in terms of a friend kind of way, but they just don't have that same, I guess, je ne sais quoi. They don't have that same energy that I get when I look at my male peers. So that was always just in the background. And then I grew up in Ontario, and then in grade 5 I moved to Alberta here, where I was born. But we promptly moved out to Ontario. But anyway, we moved back here, and then I joined, I think this was in grade 7, I joined a local club that, it was basically a swim club, but by the end of swim club, it lasted basically your entire school experience. Like, there are some kids who are in that club from grade, I think it's grade 4, all the way up to, like, grade 11, basically, because you finish your certifications at around 16. But you are in this club, and over the course of that many years, it's the club is basically, it's a junior and a senior, and you go through 5 years of the junior and you go through 3 years of the senior, so 8 years, a pretty good amount of time. And you get all of your Red Cross certifications, you get all of your Canadian Life-Saving Society certifications and things like that. And one of the coaches in this lifeguard club, is what we called it. He was very clearly gay, and I just didn't know what to do with that, of course, when I joined, because when I was in grade 7, this is when the other side of my family began to, I don't know, take a little bit more of a vocal stance against people with differing identities, and I hate this fact to this day, but I was father's side of my family, not my mom's side, were very upset with Cam and Mitchell. And I was like, well, I guess I have to be upset with them too because of this thing that they are. They're like gay, and that's weird, and that's like not good. And then my mom had to sit down with me, and she was like, basically, did I teach you nothing? The things that the other members of your family are saying are disgusting, and they have no place, and by no means will I ever have a son who says that kind of stuff. And basically from that moment on, I was like, I have seen the light. I have seen the gay light. And then she would, every just now and again, talk to me about her gay friends. She would talk to me about positive ways that gay people sort of have manifested in her life. She would show me music of like Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, David Bowie, Prince, and all this kind of stuff, where she was like, these people were not afraid to be different, and you need to not be afraid to be different. Little did I know she was essentially like priming me for loving myself when I came out. So she was really a lifeline in that way. So anyway, when I got into this lifeguard club, of course, I'm still having these feelings that, of course, I am not, like, I guess, and as I got older, it became more concrete. I'm not attracted to women. I find men, I would still say pretty back then, which I think is quite funny, because that's kind of how I describe my taste in people today, is very, like, pretty. But anyway, so then if we fast forward quite a bit, to grade 10, when I was in grade 10, I was in the, oh gosh, what was it? I was in the second to last level of this lifeguarding club, where it was in level 2 of the senior club, and there were 3 levels. And the coach that I ended up getting for all 3 levels was this coach who did happen to be gay. And in that, sort of having him as the coach for every level, we really developed a very close relationship, like our group with him. And there was one night, because this happened, it happened on Sunday evenings all the time. One night, he sat us all down up in the classroom portion of the pool building. There was a little classroom area that was just used as like a boardroom and like lifeguard training area and stuff like that. But they used it also for the lifeguarding camp, and he sat us all down, and he was like, here's the story. I'm gay. And he just told us his coming out story. And this was when I was in grade 11 at this point. No, because I was in grade 10. Because it was in math class. Okay, no, okay. I'm sorry. Grade 11 is another pivotal moment, but this was in grade 10, so yes, I was in the second to last year because I graduated from the lifeguard club in grade 11. Yes, okay. My timeline is good. I really should have written this down. But yeah, he sat us all down and he was like, here is the full story of his coming out. And at this point, like I said, have watched the Troye Sivan coming out video basically ever since it came out, for night after night after night, repeat. And in my head, I remember when my coach was telling me this coming out story, it finally clicked into my head, where I was like, it was essentially happening in real time, where I was like, holy shit. Like, that story that he just told, those indescribable feelings of just, if you are queer, you understand this, where it's not necessarily like a constant droning in my head, where it's like, I'm not constantly like, I am attracted to masculinity, I am a gay man, I am a person who likes men. No, it's not that. It is very much a feeling, like an energy, just an innate sense. And when he described that, I was like, that's it. That's me. You just described me. You described the feelings that I've been having basically since grade 2. That I have felt all of these feelings almost verbatim the way he was describing them. And that just, it opened my brain right up. It was honestly like somebody had flipped a switch in my head, where I kept thinking, and it was probably about a week that I was just thinking like, oh my god, this is what I am. And then every now and again I would have this like thought like, oh my god, I'm like Mitchell and Cameron from Modern Family. And then this is also a cheesy moment, but like, this was also when Same Love by Macklemore was playing on the radio, and it was like, oh my god, yeah, like, yeah, that makes total sense to me. And so, just in this week after he told us his coming out story, I was like realizing over and over again, this makes sense, this is me, I am gay. And finally, it was in my Math 10C class, where, and I can remember this moment as fucking vivid as I can remember anything. Like, it's truly remarkable to me. I remember where everybody was sitting in class. I remember what Miss McGinnis was talking to us about. I remember what, like, oh, please don't. Oh no, she has a different last name now because she got married. Anyway, never mind. I remember, like, that the door was open. I remember what was on the smart board. I remember looking out the window because I sat right near the windows, and I remember looking off to the side at the cork board that was right beside me. I remember what kid was sitting in front of me, what kid was sitting behind me, and I was looking at this poster of, like, some math graphic that had to do with, like, it was trigonometry. The unit that we were doing was trigonometry, and I remember there was some, like, graphic on this cork board that was supposed to, like, be describing trig to me in some way. And I remember just like, I'm gay. I remember it was just like, oh yeah, I'm gay. I am fully 100% without a doubt gay. And it was kind of scary, but it wasn't, because it was like I was introducing myself to myself. Again, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but I think a lot of queer people will understand that feeling of being introduced to the person that you are, but that you have finally, like, admitted to yourself that you are. So, after that realization, I didn't really tell anybody, because it was just kind of brewing, I think. And it's not because I didn't want to tell anybody, I really did, but this is where the other side of my family comes in. I thought that I should be ashamed of it, and I sometimes feel is shame, and in that shame that overrides some of the safety that certain friends can provide. And to anybody who has a friend who you're like, there's something queer about that friend, don't force them to come out. I would say just be there for them. Drop hints, but nothing too obvious. Just be there for them. They will introduce themselves to you when they are ready, because that's truly what I did. All of my friends, they knew fully. Every time I would come out to somebody, they would be like, you finally told us. And I would be like, yeah, I know. And it was kind of nice that they would say, you finally told us, because it was kind of like coming home to family that you haven't seen for a long time. It was like, yeah, I did finally tell you. And I would explain to them, I was like, I was just afraid, and they would all get it. And I realized that this doesn't happen to a lot of people, that I am very lucky that the stars aligned in my case, and my coming out was as smooth as it was, at least to my acquaintances and my mom, like my friends and my mom. But I think that it truly did save me to have such a welcoming coming out, because not a lot of people get that, and I think I am incredibly lucky that I did. So, as grade 10 pressed on, I was like, yep, this is not a phase, because, and I remember, this is also really cheesy, but I remember, like, choosing my first crush. I was like, yeah, that's the boy that I like. Which, I don't know if that's another experience that people can relate to, but I was like fully on board. I was like, yeah, that's who I like. Oh, I was such a, I don't know, I was a little weirdo, but I loved the fact that I was. Anyway, but then it was in grade 11, and I went to Catholic school, which you would think is a really terrible sort of experience, but I was really lucky that our high school was not very Catholic. Like, we had one religion teacher who told, well, who probably understood what I was before I really understood what I was, who told me that, well, Ryan, remember, gay people burn in hell. And I was like, oh, okay. Little did I know I would be coming out to myself in a couple months. But, anyway, so it was during Mass. Every now and again, we would all gather in the gymnasium for Mass, and I was part of choir. So we would be singing, like, the hymns and stuff like this, and this was in, like, October or something. Or maybe it was the beginning of Advent or something like that, but anyway, it was something. Why do people do Mass? I don't know. I'm not really huge on the whole religion thing, but anyway, that's a story for another time. But, my, like, best friend at the time, who I don't speak with anymore, not because of any reason, it's just because I'm literally the worst at texting people, and she lives in another city now, and I really would love to talk with her again, but, again, being neurodivergent is difficult. Anyway, so I leaned over to her, and we were singing Lamb of God, we were singing Christ Be Our Light, I think it was, and I leaned over to her, and I was like, I think I need to tell you something. And she gave me a look, and she was like, you do realize that we're, like, singing, like, right now? And I was like, okay, I'll tell you after. She knew what I was about to tell her, but she was like, can we at least get through the pain without us having to have, like, a moment here? So anyway, we did that, and it was really convenient that if you were part of the choir, you would be the group of people to, like, fold up all the chairs, put away all the chairs, put away the piano, roll it back to the choir room and stuff like that. So she and I volunteered to fold up one quadrant of the chairs and then roll the piano back pianist had to leave. The choir director was a teacher in the school, so she had to bounce. And most of the other choir kids would be like going back to their classes. And so it turned out that it was basically just me and my friend rolling the piano back to the choir room. And I just told her, I whispered it in her ear. I told her, I was like, I'm gay. And when we got back to the choir room, she gave me a big hug. And I was holding a lot of nervousness. So I like breathed out. I think I let out a tear or two. And it felt so right to do that. That it just all like fell into place, if that makes sense. It was just like, yeah, by the way, happy Pride Month. It's finally turned to Pride Month. Yay. But it just was so natural to do it. And then and then the next person I ended up coming out to was a friend at school who was a lesbian, and she was always asking me and telling me, like, if you ever have anything to tell me, that's okay. She was a grade above me, so I came out to her, and she was like, yep. And I was like, it feels so natural and right and good. And she was like, yep, yep, yep. And then the best friend that I had come out to previously, I had come out to, then I came out to her best friend, and then I came out to my current best friend right now, who I just, like, the one that I attended her wedding, and it was really amazing because she then came out to me as bisexual. I think that was on the same day, and or a couple months on, something like that. So that was like a really fun moment. And then I came out to like 2 or 3 more people, and then it was summer, and then in starting grade 12 now, because in grade 11 was when I came out, and I had told maybe a dozen people in grade 11 or so, and then in grade 12, you know what, I told quite more than a dozen people, because the entire drama cast for our grade 11 show knew, and then I think the entire the musical theater cast knew that I was gay. So call it like 3 dozen people at most knew that I was gay and that I had like officially come out to. And then over the summer, I remember like talking to my friends and saying, like, I just don't want it to be like this big thing anymore of like me coming out. So what I ended up doing, and this kind of fell into my lap, the musical theater teacher the next year, when we were sort of like discussing which musical that we would do, and this might sound awful to some of you, but she and I truly had this kind of relationship, and I was very happy that she did this. It might not be conventional, and it might be the kind of thing that you don't do, but I am very much okay with it. We stan her, absolutely. She's a gorgeous example of a human being. She then asked a couple of my friends, so Ryan is gay, right? Because there was a significant romantic couple of scenes that she wanted to cast me for in the musical theater production, because we were not a very big musical theater class, and she didn't want me to feel uncomfortable. So then a couple of my friends were like, yep. So then she called me into her room. We had a discussion about it, and she was like, Trisha, you just gave me the best favor I ever could have asked for, because now everybody can just come out for me. Like, I don't have to do any of the emotional work. And she was like, first of all, never call me by my first name again. That continued happening. And second of all, she was like, thank you. And then she gave me a massive hug. And that is how very quickly I became, it was just so incredible. I was just out, and people still liked me, and I was still, like, in all of my groups, and I wasn't, like, popular, but I still find that I'm this way today. I can be a bit of a social chameleon. I can fit in with many different groups, and, like, very often in high school, I would be speaking with a lot of the different sort of, like, cliques and groups and what have you. Not that we were a very, like, dramatic or cliquey school or anything like that, but they would still let me talk with them, and even, like, the guys and, like, whatever, however you would describe that group of people, they even were still cool with talking with me. And even, okay, there's this guy who I've reconnected with from high school because of my friend's wedding. Me and his current fiance are very, very close now, which I'm very, very happy about. But he even was like, what do you need? And when he asked me that, I was like, what do you mean? He was like, do you mean to set you up with anybody? And I was like, okay. Turns out he didn't know anybody gay. He's awesome. I love him. I'm very happy we've reconnected. He offered to buy me, because he was 18 at this point, he offered to buy me adult toys. And he offered to buy me, like, alcohol. He was like, do you want me to sneak you into the gay bar? And, like, all of this stuff. And it was just like, it was so fucking good. It felt so good to be me. And it was amazing. Literally, the only blip in all of this, which I realize is a really big thing, but it is so far in the past for me at this point that it doesn't feel big. But, and this is what I will bring up in brief, the person who used to have the title of my father, he looked at me the night that I came out to my mom. She was like, for sure, perfect, I love you, never stop loving you, I've known this for a long time, let's listen to Madonna. Which was like our thing at that point, because the Rebel Heart album had just come out, like the year previous, and I loved that album. But anyway, but then when it eventually came to my dad, because I knew that being out at school would eventually come around to him, and then it was quite late at night because I had come home from the drama cast party, and where I was offered to be snuck into the gay bar and offered to have adult toys bought for me. And keep in mind, I was just like getting into alcohol at this point in my life, so I was like, we'll hold off on that, but thank you, I will take you up on that when I can. Maybe the offer is still on the table, who knows. I'll have to ask him. But anyway, so yes, I'd come home from the drama cast party, and then, of course, my mom and I, we call him Idiot now, so that's what I'm going to continue calling him. Idiot had come down the stairs, and it was like, 6 months for him to be able to look at me without bursting into tears. And I've later now found this out, he told his entire side of the family, who of course are not friendly to any of this kind of thing. So they started looking at me funny, and I immediately knew that he had compromised me. But the thing is that I was so lucky to have my mom that she was like, I guess, stood up for me. She was sending emails, she was sending texts, she was refusing to go to dinners for me. And I owe that woman so much, because that could have done a lot of damage to me. And idiot being who he was, I just was like, he and I had always had a fraught relationship, just in general. But I was just like, you know what? Fuck him. He has no right telling me what I can and can't be, telling me if I'm disturbing or not. Like, you have no right doing that. So I essentially estranged myself from him before he thoroughly managed to do that the next year. So everything works out. He excised himself from my life, and he has not been back in it since, and I'm very happy about that. Now I get to tell people that I have one amazing mother, and that's it. So he gave me that gift in a way. But so that was kind of the blip. I don't talk to that side of my family anymore, but they don't deserve me. They don't deserve my joy. They don't deserve my happiness whatsoever. So that is basically my coming out story. Essentially, everybody who meets me now kind of just gets it. I never had to come out at Starbucks. I never had to come out at this new job that I started. People just kind of knew when I taught swimming lessons. I never really had to come out in university. I never had to come out. It was just all accepted. And I think there's such a beauty in that. And anybody who decides to look at me funny, well, go ahead. Fuck you. Like, I am a happy person, and I am a gorgeous, beautiful person. So that's kind of all. Now, the other coming out that I had is really quite recent, that I've at least put a name onto it. I have also kind of introduced myself. This was over the pandemic. I have sort of introduced myself to myself as asexual, and so far that label has felt really, really good to me. So, like I say, the asexuality is a work in process. I, of course, have not been intimate with anybody. I've not even been in a relationship with anybody, but I, throughout this whole process, have never felt a sex drive. And it was in a discussion that I actually had with somebody at work, when I worked at Starbucks, where I was like, oh, I always just thought that it was like low sex drive. Turns out I have no sex drive, and I don't really have a need for sort of like involved physical intimacy. I guess that would be the best way to put it. When I see somebody, I'm like, I want to cuddle with them, and I want to like play with their hair. Where I realize that some people are like, I want to fuck them. Now, that's not true for everybody, obviously. I'm not doing a blanket statement about what asexuality is. I'm very much new to the feeling and to the label, so it might change, of course, when I get into a dedicated relationship. That might change as well, but I think that me coming out as gay was so definitive, and that is a good example of one of those coming out experiences. But me now, in the process of coming out as asexual, I think that represents the other side of the sexuality coin, where not all this is set in stone. The human person, the human animal is such a complicated and beautiful thing that I don't think sometimes a label is needed, at least immediately. I find the label very comforting, and that's why I think asexuality is comfortable on me for the moment. But if you are having these sort of curious feelings, or if you are wondering, does this fit with me, or if you're wondering, does this gender not fit, does this label not fit, does this pronoun, does this term not fit, don't be afraid to break with that mold, because for every 10 people that will say, oh, this is a fad, you're following a trend, you're in a phase, they can fuck themselves, because I am here telling you that those feelings that you're having are valid, they are beautiful, and you need to have them to learn who you are. So, all of this being said, I recently came out to the bridal party. I was a bridesmaid for my best friend at this wedding that I just attended last weekend, I guess I should say now. But I came out to the bridal party, and they were all like, "Go for it, amazing." And I told them it might change, and they were like, "That's not the point. The point is that's what you feel right now." So, this has been a very long story time, but I hope that it has helped. I hope that it gives you some sort of hope. I hope that it gives you some sort of joy. I hope that it gives you a little bit of advice. Anything, really, if you have gained something from this, thank you. Thank you for being here. Happy Pride. Obviously, we are now well into Pride Month. Make the most of it. Make the most of it. They're giving us a whole month. And that's more than they have, like, ever given us. Like, they used to raid our clubs. So, like, take Pride Month and fight for more of it. Fight for more equality. Fight for more acceptance. Be abashedly, unapologetically queer. You are fantastic. You are beautiful. You are the kind of person, queer people honestly are the kind of people that feed my soul, because we are so vibrant and so bright and so full of life that we deserve every little second of this month and more, just as much as anybody else deserves any other time of year. Just as much as something like Black History Month or Women's History Month needs to be all year round. Pride needs to be all year round. So that being said, thank you for being here.